Have you ever wondered what secrets some people carry with them until their final days? Secrets that could change the way we live, love, and care for ourselves? If only we knew them in time. The truth is, many older adults quietly live with regrets, hidden fears, and unspoken wisdom. Lessons learned too late after years of repeating the same silent mistakes. They bury these secrets deep, often too ashamed or too proud to share what truly matters until it's far too late. And by the time their children, their friends, or their doctors realize what went wrong, it's already over. Today, we're breaking that silence. For the first time, you'll uncover the 6 secrets older people take to the grave. Secrets that explain why some people age with strength, joy, and purpose, while others spend their final years battling illness, loneliness, and regret. These aren't just stories. They are patterns, proven by science, witnessed by caregivers, and shared by those brave enough to speak the truth. You'll learn the subtle warning signs most people ignore until it's too late. The daily habits that seem harmless but quietly steal years from your life, and the rare, powerful shifts that can change everything, no matter your age. And here's why you need to stay until the very end. Because once you hear these secrets, you'll start to see them everywhere, in your parents, your friends, and even in your own life. And once you see them, you can change them. Comment number 1 if you're ready. The first most common mistake is suppressing emotions for decades. For most of his life, Frank believed that silence was strength. Growing up in a time when men were taught to swallow their feelings, he learned early on that vulnerability was dangerous. Frank never told his wife when he felt overwhelmed. He never cried at funerals. He never admitted, even to himself, that some days felt unbearably heavy. At first, it seemed like a harmless habit, a way to keep life orderly, emotions tucked neatly away. But the body remembers what the mind refuses to face. Over the years, Frank's unspoken grief, anger, and disappointment began to surface in ways he never expected. High blood pressure, stomach ulcers, chest pains that doctors called stress-related. According to a study from Harvard University, people who suppress their emotions over long periods are significantly more likely to develop chronic illnesses, including heart disease, stroke, and even certain cancers. Emotional suppression doesn't protect you. It poisons you slowly. Evelyn learned this lesson the hard way. After losing her husband, she tried to stay strong for everyone else. She smiled at the right moments, said she was fine, even when her heart felt like it was breaking. But grief has a way of creeping in no matter how deep you bury it. It wasn't until Evelyn joined a local grief support group that something shifted. She found herself saying out loud things she'd never dared to speak before. Anger, guilt, fear, and what surprised her most was that speaking the truth didn't break her. It freed her. Over time, Evelyn's health stabilized. Her sleep improved, even her persistent back pain eased. It wasn't magic, it was biology. Studies show that expressing emotions, whether through words, writing, or even tears, reduces inflammation and strengthens the immune system. Frank, on the other hand, never found that release. Today, his face carries the weight of unshed tears. His body, rigid, aching, tells the story he never could. If this surprised you, comment number 2 below. The second most common mistake is neglecting muscle strength after 60. Frank always thought strength training was for younger men, athletes, bodybuilders, people chasing vanity. By the time he hit retirement, the idea of lifting weights felt almost ridiculous. Why bother? He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to run marathons. He believed walking to the mailbox was enough to stay active. What Frank didn't realize is that after the age of 60, muscle loss accelerates quietly, stealing mobility, balance, and independence. It's called sarcopenia, a word most people don't hear until it's too late. Studies show that adults lose up to 8% of their muscle mass every decade after 40, and the rate only increases with age. For Frank, the signs appeared slowly. First, he struggled to carry groceries. Then, climbing stairs left him winded. Eventually, getting up from a chair became an effort. He dismissed it all as normal aging, until the day he slipped in the bathroom and couldn't get up without help. Evelyn took a different path. She was never a gym person, but after reading about the dangers of muscle loss, she made a decision. Twice a week, she showed up at the community center's senior fitness class. Nervous, embarrassed, but determined. The first time she held a 5-pound weight, it felt heavier than it should have. But she kept going. Slowly, her arms strengthened. Her legs felt steadier. Months passed, and one day she realized she could lift her granddaughter with ease. No back pain, no fear of falling. Research from the National Institute on Aging confirms it. Regular strength training reduces the risk of falls, improves balance, and even supports brain health by increasing blood flow. Evelyn's body is far from perfect, but she stands tall, walks steady, and lives without the constant fear of breaking. Frank watches from his recliner now, bitter and regretful. Not because he wanted to be a bodybuilder, but because he missed his chance to protect the one thing that mattered most: his independence. The third most common mistake is mistaking loneliness for peace. Frank never liked crowds, even family. Gatherings made him uncomfortable. After retirement, he convinced himself that what he craved was peace and quiet. No more office politics, no more obligations, no more noise. Slowly, his world shrank. The phone rang less. He stopped answering. When it did, friends drifted away. What Frank didn't see, what so many failed to see, is that loneliness wears a clever disguise. At first, it feels like relief, space to think, freedom from responsibility. But inside the brain, something dangerous begins. Loneliness is not just a feeling, it's a biological threat. Studies from Brigham Young University found that chronic loneliness increases the risk of premature death by 26%, making it as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The brain, wired for connection, interprets isolation as life-threatening. It floods the body with stress hormones. It weakens the immune system. It accelerates cognitive decline. Frank convinced himself that sitting in silence was peace. But it wasn't peace. It was slow decay. Evelyn feared that trap. After her husband died, she felt the pull toward isolation, the empty house, the quiet nights. But something deep inside her knew she couldn't survive that way. She forced herself out. Book clubs, Sunday church, even awkward dinners with new neighbors. It wasn't easy. Some days she hated every second of it, but she kept showing up, and slowly it paid off. The laughter came back. Conversations felt easier. New friendships took root in places she never expected. And with them came something else: purpose. Connection didn't just fill Evelyn's days. It strengthened her body, sharpened her mind, and reminded her that she was still part of this world. Frank, meanwhile, became a ghost in his own home. The TV became his companion. His world, once full of possibilities, narrowed down to 4 walls and a clock ticking too slowly. The fourth most common mistake is ignoring subtle changes in memory and mood. Frank always prided himself on being sharp. Numbers were his world. Spreadsheets, budgets, tax returns. But somewhere in his late 60s, things began to slip. He couldn't remember why he walked into a room. Names escaped him. Bills went unpaid for the first time in his life. He laughed it off, calling it senior moments. Then came the mood swings. Frustration over the smallest things, snapping at his wife for no reason, retreating further into silence. Frank refused to talk about it. After all, forgetfulness was just part of aging, wasn't it? What Frank didn't know, and what many still don't, is that memory loss and mood changes are not just harmless signs of getting older. They're warning signals, silent alarms that the brain is struggling. A study from Johns Hopkins revealed that mild cognitive impairment, if ignored, doubles the risk of developing full-blown dementia. But early detection, combined with lifestyle changes, can slow or even reverse that decline. Evelyn saw the signs too. There were days she forgot where she left her keys, moments when words sat stubbornly on the tip of her tongue. But instead of brushing it off, she paid attention. She read. She asked questions. She scheduled a cognitive assessment, something most people are too afraid to do. What she learned changed everything. The doctor explained how blood sugar, sleep, exercise, and even hydration affect the brain. Evelyn made changes, cut back on sugar, joined a brain health workshop, started walking every morning. And slowly, the fog lifted. Her mind felt clearer, her memory sharper, because the brain, like any muscle, needs care and challenge to thrive. Frank, meanwhile, kept sinking. By the time his family noticed, the damage was done. His world became smaller, his memories fainter, and the man who once balanced million-dollar accounts couldn't remember his own grandchildren's names. The fifth most common mistake is trusting that doctors alone will protect your health. Frank was the kind of patient every doctor thought they wanted. Quiet, polite, compliant. He took every prescription handed to him without question. Statins for his cholesterol, beta blockers for his heart, pain pills for his back. Year after year, the list grew longer. Frank trusted the system. After all, doctors know best. But what he didn't understand is that medicine treats symptoms, not causes. And by surrendering control, Frank gave up the one thing that could have saved him, his own curiosity. A study published in the British Medical Journal showed that patients who ask more questions, seek second opinions, and stay actively involved in their care live longer and experience fewer complications. But Frank never asked. He never challenged. He never wondered if there was a better way. Evelyn saw it differently. After her cancer diagnosis, she felt the same fear. She wanted someone to tell her exactly what to do. But the more she listened, the more she realized how little anyone, doctor or not, could guarantee. So Evelyn became her own advocate. She read every study she could find. She learned about nutrition, inflammation, and how stress impacts healing. She sat in the doctor's office with a notebook full of questions. She asked why every single time, and that made all the difference. Evelyn learned that moving her body helped her recover faster, that changing her diet reduced her risk of recurrence. That mindset, hope, purpose, connection, was as powerful as any pill. Frank, on the other hand, spent his final years managing. Side effects from medications meant to prolong his life but draining the joy from every day. He never once asked why he felt worse with every new prescription. Evelyn took control. Frank gave it away. And in the end, that choice made all the difference. The sixth most common mistake is living without a sense of purpose. The day Frank retired, something inside him quietly shut down. For 40 years, his identity was wrapped in numbers, clients, and deadlines. When that ended, so did his reason to wake up each morning. At first, he told himself he'd earned the right to rest, to sleep in, to do nothing. But days turned to weeks, weeks into months, and soon Frank was drifting, alive but not living. The smallest tasks felt heavy. Joy became a distant memory, and the more time passed, the more invisible he felt. What Frank didn't know was that the human brain is wired for purpose. Without it, the body starts to break down. Studies from the University of Michigan found that people with a strong sense of purpose live longer, suffer fewer health problems, and maintain sharper cognitive function. Purpose is not just emotional, it's biological. Evelyn learned this when she faced her darkest moment: the death of her husband. For months, she felt the same drift Frank did. But then she asked herself a question that changed everything. What am I still here for? The answer didn't come overnight. But slowly, Evelyn began testing the waters. She volunteered at the library. She started mentoring younger teachers. She planted a garden. None of it erased her grief, but it gave her a reason to keep going. That purpose became her anchor. On the hard days, it pulled her out of bed. On the good days, it made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Evelyn discovered what Frank never did. Purpose isn't about grand achievements. It's about waking up every morning knowing someone, somewhere, is better because you're still here. Frank, meanwhile, faded quietly, surrounded by things, but untouched by meaning. His greatest regret wasn't what he did. It was everything he never tried. Some secrets stay buried until it's too late. But today, you've heard them, whispered through the lives of Frank and Evelyn. Two people, two paths. One fading quietly into regret, the other choosing every single day to fight for life. Frank didn't set out to fail. No one ever does. His mistakes were small at first, easy to ignore, easy to justify. A skipped workout, a swallowed emotion, a silent dinner alone. But over time, those choices became his life story. Evelyn wasn't stronger. She wasn't luckier. She simply made a different choice. She faced what most run from: the grief, the loneliness, the slow march of age. And because she faced it, she found what so many miss: resilience, joy, and purpose that didn't fade with the years, but grew. The truth is, every one of us will face that same choice. Whether you're 60, 70, or 80, the road is still open. The body can heal. The mind can sharpen. The heart can open again. But only if you decide that it matters. Suppressing emotions, neglecting your strength, confusing loneliness for peace, ignoring your mind's silent cries, trusting blindly in a system that was never designed to save you, living without purpose. These are the traps that steal years, drain your joy, and leave you wondering where the time went. But the power to change, it's yours, right now, today. The years ahead can be different, not just longer, but fuller, richer, truly alive. All it takes is one decision: to stop waiting and start living, to fight for yourself the way Evelyn did. Because if there's one thing the Franks of the world will tell you, if they could, it's this: they didn't realize how precious their time was until it was gone. You don't have to make the same mistake. If you're ready to choose life, real, vibrant, meaningful life, comment below. Tell me you're ready. And if this message hit home, don't leave it here. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter of your life starts now.